Ann Master. Welcome to my Common Sense Living podcast, where I will add common sense and value to your life. Get a pen and paper, because you're going to want to take notes. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Todd Fisch. I heard of him through the NAP, N-A-M-P, National Association of Nutritional Professionals. His use of facial diagnosis fascinated me. I thought y'all may enjoy his story. And this is the book that I bought, and I'm fascinated with this. So he'll explain more about that. So with that, I'll let him tell us more about himself and what he does. So Dr. Frisch, welcome.
Well, thank you. Pleasure. So I am retired. I'm sitting up in northern Wisconsin. I'm looking at my lake as we speak. It's beautiful. It's 53 degrees for those of you who are dying in the heat. It's pretty nice here. So I practiced for just short of 4 decades in St. Louis, Missouri. I actually grew up in central Wisconsin, left in the mid-70s, went to school, and loved my profession. But I found early on, we as physicians, we're trained to ask what's wrong, and that's great. The problem is I had too many patients come in. I knew something was wrong. They knew something was wrong. Yet every test I ran on them was textbook midline normal. And the basic approach is 20 milligrams of Prozac, which that was very gender specific. I might add, women really got abused in that world. So I knew that wasn't the answer. And I had a rather sad aha moment that caused me to have a paradigm shift. I had a dear friend, his name was Jack, and he would see his medical doctor and get blood work, and then he'd come into me and want me to look at his blood work, because there's normal ranges and then there's optimal ranges. It's a functional blood test numbers. So he came in, it was a Tuesday late afternoon, or late morning, I should say, and he said, "Hey, Dr. Todd, I got my blood work. I'll set up a time." And I said, "Jack, I got one more patient. Just hang loose, and I'll look it over, and we can do it. You can save time, and maybe we'll." I looked at his blood work and I said, "What did Dr. Mike say?" Dr. Mike said, "I wish my blood work was good as this." And I said, "Jack, not only is it good medically, but it's perfect. It's textbook, midline, right in the middle, perfect. This is the best blood test that's ever been." Wow. That was a Tuesday. On Thursday, he was jogging in a place called Queenie Park. It's in West County, St. Louis, and he was dead before he hit the ground. And I thought, I just told him he's the healthiest he's ever been, and he's clinically dead. And I tell you, it caused, I get teary even think about it right now. It just shook me. And I realized I got to take a different approach. So I began an adventure, let me put it that way, that culminated obviously in this book. But I began with the realization that you have to be 2/3 sick before medicine sees anything wrong.
Oh, yeah.
That's a little dangerous. So we emphasize on that when you cross that 2/3 line, but you got to be, again, 2/3 sick before anything is spotted. So I began looking at patients and asking what's not right. Well, there's no parameters out there. I studied Ayurvedic medicine. I studied traditional Chinese medicine. I studied astrology. Didn't get a lot out of that. I'm sure it has value somewhere, but from a clinical standpoint, it really didn't. I studied all these different techniques, Galen's four humors. I studied Jungian psychology, just trying to understand what's not right. And it culminated, with facial diagnosis. I did touch diagnosis, different points in the body have diagnostic value. I studied with Bernard Jensen on iridology before he passed away. I actually spent a week at his ranch in California at Escondido. Fascinating, just a gentle man. But I put all these things together and came up with a protocol that just caused my practice to take off into the stratosphere. It was unbelievably successful, but the success had nothing to do with money. It had to do with my ability to help sick people get well. So that's in a nutshell. That's my story.
I wish there were more doctors like you.
Well, thank you. I wish there were too.
Yeah. My own story on that is I'm from the Midwest, where you work and you work hard, and I've got the get her done kind of attitude. And here in San Antonio, you better get it done before it's too hot to plant. So I'm in the squat position, planting. I hurt my IT band, and I don't know what all, so I'm going to therapy for that, right? Well, I went to the doctor, the hip doctor, because previously, 7 years ago, I had a hip replacement, excuse me, from an injury 22 years before. So it had finally caught up with me. So yearly I go back to make sure that that's fine. And I said, well, this right one's acting up. And he had an x-ray. He says, yep, another hip surgery. I said, I'm not having another hip surgery. End of story. I'll see you next year. That kind of attitude, right?
Sure.
And so I went to my regular doctor and was talking to the PA and told her about it. And she said, well, I can offer you prednisone, the NSAIDs, or therapy. I said, well, therapy, that's what I wanted 9 months ago. So I'm going to a therapist, and yeah, it's helping, but my massage therapist that I found at the sports massage, he's helping me more than anybody has.
Awesome.
This alternative medicine is so whole for the body. It's not channeled. And I don't respect the medical system as much as I used to. I'm a nurse, and I went to, I got my license in 95, but I went to school part-time to get my prereqs and all that. And I say I went to school before the schools were bought by pharmaceutical companies. So I'm doing a clubhouse talk today at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, I'm sorry. And it's about the toxic foods, how they were and how they are now, and how the medical system got infiltrated by Rockefeller's money. You dump what our ancestors had and do pharmaceuticals, basically, this in a nutshell. And so anyhow, I'm going to present that today because it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And I am very close with God and very intuitive, and I garden, I love animals, all that. So that's enough about me because this is about you.
Well, no, when I started this, I was a quack. There was, I took some hits, man, when I left the real world, which I thought was great, and it kind of hurt my feelings to get called a quack, but I was helping people, so I had a hard time changing my approach, and then when big pharma and medicine decided that, well, you're not quacks, you're an alternative, and they called us alternative medicine, and then they said, well, you might be a little better than alternative. They call us complementary, complement the great and wonderful Oz, not Dr. Oz, but the Oz. And then we all went to CAM conferences, complementary and alternative medicine, and then they really integrated us, and they called it integrative medicine, and we're now at the point where they're calling it functional medicine, and I hate that term. It sounds like math to me. I want a paradigm shift in what we refer to, the kind of work that we do. I want to call it restorative medicine. Let's restore people back to a place they should have never left in the first place.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
Yeah. You had the IT band thing. So it's interesting. In my studies, I spend a lot of time in something called applied kinesiology. My dog just walked in, say hello to Lambo.
Yeah, I've got a cat meowing.
So in kinesiology, the IT band it's your tensor fasciae latae, the muscle. That muscle corresponds to the large intestine. I cannot tell you the number of times I have people with chronic hip pain that all these digestive problems, I fixed their digestion and their hip pain went away. So because the IT band kind of went back to where it belonged, and it was just telling us what was going on. So it's kind of like facial diagnosis. We all do it. We all look at someone and go, "You okay today? You feeling okay? Something wrong?" Well, what did we see that day we didn't see the day before? So we just, in our book, I wrote with my daughter Abby. It's kind of my life experience and her talent as a writer. And thank you. And it just kind of takes you through my path from being trained in that classic way of looking at things to the point where it's now part of my whole life. It's my life's work.
And I thank God for people like you.
I thank God, period.
Well, yeah, that's definitely. Okay, secondary, yeah. God.
Yeah. Touche, as they say.
So approximately how many years ago did you start this?
In 1982, I bought a book at a bookstore that no longer exists in downtown St. Louis. It was called The Secrets of the Face, Poorly written book, not nothing that just grabbed you, but I never let it go away to the books,
Yeah, you
trade your
kept
book
it.
kind of thing. And then when I had this moment, I began really going through. I've got over 80 books on facial diagnosis. Most of them deal with personality, and that's good. But I wanted something that had a physiological component. So when we see the eyebrows thin to the outside and get thicker to the inside, you have that and I have that. That is in Western medicine, that's called a Hertog sign. It indicates low thyroid function. Now, and that certainly can be a factor, but my thyroid's fine. And
Yeah.
that thinness to the eyebrows also represents a lack of sibling support. So I don't know where you stand on that, but
Whoa.
yeah.
Whoa.
So I have two brothers. They're older. I'm the youngest. And typically, when people have a lack of sibling support, they're either the firstborn or the lastborn. And so I have two brothers. I love them. I take a bullet for them. But whatever they did, I did the opposite. They didn't do well in school. I excelled. I moved away. They didn't. It was just kind of a pissing contest from day one with them. They hunted and fished. I didn't. I played sports. They didn't. So that lack of sibling support, that isn't necessarily a toxic thing, but it can be a toxic thing, and it can be something that can block someone's ability to get well. And when I bring that up to them, it's like, oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, wow. Because I
So
have,
where are you in the birth order?
well, there's only two of us, and I have an older sister,
Okay, well, then you're
and
older.
she knows she was smart.
Yep.
She's by the book. She's the responsible one. I'm the fun one. So I don't know. She tried to keep me on the straight and narrow, that it had to be God, it had to be the Bible, it had to be every Sunday, that kind of thing. And it's like, oh, I got to sit over here and over here and over here. And I live in Texas. She's never come to see me yet. We grew up in Iowa. I go back every year, and she's afraid to. She's this, she's that. Well, I've been to Switzerland, to the Swiss clinic over there with Robin Openshaw. And I've been to Peru, I've been to Cuba, I've been to Haiti.
Awesome.
I've been on a Windjammer cruise, and the gals I work with, they say, well, gee, you go by yourself on this? I said, well, sure. I'm afraid. I said, terrified. But if I don't do it, I never will. Yes, my husband has to stay home with the cats, because we have 6 cats in the house. 7 is in and out, and number 8 is outside, because otherwise we come back to a destroyed house. But that's okay with us. He's done his traveling. I can do mine. It works for us. It's great.
Awesome.
I'm the adventurous one, and she isn't. She's afraid of everything. And now her daughter thinks a lot like I do. I do healing touch for animals and people. I'm an energy worker in that respect. So my niece is kind of like that. So now my sister's getting squeezed by both of us, but yet still hanging on to that fear and can't get her away from it. And, I can't fix her. I can't. So I just have to worry about me. But boy, over the years, it's like I wanted her support and all that. So when you say that, I'm thinking, oh my God, no matter how many tubes of cream I put on to grow my eyebrows.
It's not going to work. Not going to work.
Oh, that's very informative.
Yeah, and I got into facial diagnosis, obviously, for the reason that I said, but also it was for patient compliance. There are 9 face shapes. I'm a bucket head. You're an interesting combination. You have some bucket quality. So we bucket faces, we love to learn. We love to put things into a bucket. I mean, there's no book that shouldn't be open to us. And we need
exactly.
We can sit in a chair all day. We don't need TV. We don't need music. We just need to think. It's a wonderful thing. You have a really strong jaw, much stronger than mine, which has both a king and an iron quality. So the king, kind of a natural leader. You see both sides of the issue, tend to be very, very fair, very good judge. The iron quality of that jaw that's the 3 S's. You're strong, you're stable, and you're stubborn.
Oh my God.
Cheekbones are very high, so you'll see that in the American Indian population. They love to travel. They just love to see. They love to see everything. So again, you don't have a simple face in face shape. I'm a pretty classic bucket face. So we bucket faces, we like to think we like a pat on the back. So if I'm talking to a patient who's a bucket face, I'll pat him on the back and I'll say, look, I know you need to think about this, but this is what I'd like you to think. And so I want to dance with the music they're playing. If they're waltzing, I don't want to do swing dance with them. I want to waltz with them. if I'm talking to the king face in you, my wife is a king face. They don't want to talk about weather. They don't want to talk about sports. Can you help me? How long does it take? What's it going to cost? Let's go. I don't want, let's just move. Let's get going. The iron face quality you have, I would use words like, if you can dedicate yourself to this, if you can persevere with your strength that you have. If I have a fire face, they have a very narrow, angular face, like an upside down triangle. I wouldn't say, look, you need to do this. You don't do this right now, you're in trouble. They'll never come back. They'll just, you watch them recoil. I will say, look, I know you're sensitive, and normally I would start you on 5,000 IUs of vitamin E, but we're going to start with 1,000. I want to respect that sensitivity. And they just melt in front of you because for the first time someone is hearing them.
Yeah.
So it sounds like almost cheating or sinister, but it really is about talking where they can hear, and then compliance is there. Because I was asking people to do things. I was recommending vitamin D when you could hardly find it on the health food stores. Now it's, of course, the big kid on the block. But it was interesting early on when there wasn't a lot of me or people like me around. Now we're all over the place, which I think is fantastic because that's what the public wants.
Right. That is what we want. We want to be in good health, great health. And then with the stress we've got in the world and our educational system dumbing us down, and I am stubborn. I know it's about the food, and I've had to tone down with people because I push it, and I can't make them. All I can do is introduce it and let them go on board themselves. And that's been really hard for me to do. I know what you need to do, and you don't do it, and they go and eat the junk food, and family's the hardest one to convince.
Absolutely. Tap into the bucket part of your head. You'll go better in life because you won't be so demanding of people. If you take your iron and your king face, you're going to knock people upside the head and make them do what you want. And they'll do it for a while, but then they'll get bored with it. They gotta want it. You got to get to their why. Yeah. Start with Why, Simon Sinek's book. It's just a terrific read. And there's so much.
Start with what again?
Simon Sinek. It starts with Why. Great book. Again, imagine me liking books as a bucket face. So when I last 8 years in practice, I came up with my wife came to me menopausal. Very healthy, very health conscious, just does everything right. And she was gaining weight, which is real common in the menopausal female. Kind of lost her mind, and she got in my face and said, "You help everybody, but you're not helping me." And I go, "Well, hon, there's nothing wrong." She's like, "I can't lose weight." And I did the husband thing. I said, "Hon, I love you. You look great. You're beautiful." It didn't matter. It's how those. It's a very intelligent woman, but it came down to how do those blue jeans fit, and they weren't fitting the way she wanted to. So now I have this disdain for diets because basically, the product I developed and the system I developed was called Shape Reclaimed, and it's a formula along with an eating program that helps. I built it to help the menopausal female that was having some weight issues, and then all the miracles started happening. So Shape Reclaim was built out of my wife's desire, and I built it on two premises. Number one, all diets fail because all diets fail, every one of them. And the other factor was it's got to be something other than metabolic. Thyroid would be an exception to that, but for the most part, there's other factors involved. And I was fascinated by the fact that when someone went, say, on an Atkins diet, good big construction worker, he goes on Atkins and he's at 240, he crushes it, and almost within moments he's 200 pounds and he's feeling great. And then what happens? He eats a piece of bread, and all hell breaks loose in his brain. And so what was happening with these people, they would lose the weight on any diet, but they would gain it back, and usually 10 to 20% more. So the guy starts at 240, gets to 200, and when everything's said and done, he's 260. It had to do with some research I did on what's called a set point. This is what your brain thinks you should weigh. So I realized the missing link was the brain, specifically the limbic system of your brain, which is your hypothalamus pituitary gland. They talk to each other and they send messages to your thyroid stimulating hormone, to your adrenal glands, ACTH, to your ovaries, your follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. All these different messaging systems are going on. And I realized the problem with all diets was the brain got a message that it's starving. So now I have my wife, and I have to make a system that works. And I developed this protocol, and I made an herbal homeopathic formula, again called Shape Reclaim, and we use a urine analysis to spot starvation. So anytime we see a marker in the urine, if we see large ketosis, which would Atkins wanted you to be, that's starvation. Your brain's getting a message every day: I'm starving, I'm starving, I'm starving. So the moment you eat a piece of bread, your brain says, feed me, Seymour, and all of a sudden you go crazy. So we use a Diascreen 10. It's 5 of the 10 things on the urine analysis are diagnostic of starvation. So what was happening, I developed this product, and you can't just buy 25 of them. So I contacted a number of companies. I had to buy 1,000 bottles of this stuff. So, and I remember getting my credit card. We put everything on a credit card, frequent flyer miles. And I put 1,000 bottles in, and the credit card came. It was $33,000.
Oh my God!
That'll scare the peewad out of you. And my wife says, "This better work." So my king face wife. So it was unbelievably successful. I lectured in a number of venues in those days, and the word got around locally that I had this product in the system. And pretty soon we got 40 doctors on using Shape, and then it became more and more, and it's spread by word of mouth. Now we're national. There's over 500 practitioners that use our product. But in all systems, there's going to be problems with hiccups where it's just something's not going to cause it to work like it should. And I didn't have a lot of problems because I used facial diagnosis. I used all these other iridology, and I could spot leaky gut. I could spot insulin resistance. I could spot leptin resistance before it would show up medically, that kind of thing. So what was happening was these practitioners would call and say, "Look, I got a problem with this patient. It's this, and this." And my wife would say, who managed my office, she'd say, "Send a picture. Let Dr. Todd take a picture." So I look at the picture and I say, "Look, you got to get them on some blood sugar support, and their liver is not, the liver has got some issues, so we're probably not converting glucose to glycogen in the storage form, and that's why they're always craving food, and that's what's going on." So they would do what my wife told them to do, and it would work, and they would call back and go, "What the hell was that? What did he see that I didn't see?" So then my wife says, you gotta teach this. We do yearly symposiums. You have to teach this facial diagnosis. And I can't. It's an intuitive thing. You're very intuitive, and as am I. And I said, I can't teach it. And she said, as the quality king face would say, "No, you will be teaching it." So I did begin teaching it, and then they wanted an entire lecture on it, so a 12-hour weekend conference on it. So I did that, and they said, "We want a book." And I go, "I don't write books." Then my daughter, who's the best facial diagnostician I've ever trained, and has got incredible writing talent, and we wrote this book, and it was special to write it. There's a quote. Sad story here. My first 2 children died. So had they lived, I would have probably had a third, maybe a fourth, but Abby would have been my 5th. She probably wouldn't have been on this earth. We probably would not have had that many kids. And the death of those 2 children kind of was the impetus for my marriage falling apart. But had that not happened, these words would have never been written. It's page 105 of the book. Facial diagnosis changes how you see people. We have these little vignettes, these life lessons we call them, page 105. And Abby states, "Something fantastic about learning to read faces is that you stop looking at people as more or less pretty. When you learn to read faces, every person becomes a beautiful, unique individual. To see strength is inspiring and motivating. Seeing weakness increases awareness and empathy and helps you to be more kind. Facial diagnosis doesn't help you become a better doctor, it helps you become a better person." Those words would have never made it on paper had my first 2 children lived. So as sad as some of these stories, we all have a story, there is reason why things happen, and you just have to accept that God knows more than you do, and life is good. Sorry, got a little theory there.
That is way more than I even expected to find out. Just, just hearing you on the NAP conference, that little bit on there, and then having looked in your book and all. Now, I swear in your book was a picture of Bill Gates, but
Yes.
I can't find it. Do you know what page it's on? Okay.
Oh, he's a bucket face. I don't think it's in the book. I was in my lecture I did for NP.
Maybe that's where I saw it.
That's where the picture of Gates was.
Because I thought, wow, you were talking about the right eye, the left eye, and when we're speaking, we always look in the right eye. Yet I always thought it's weird. We put the name tag over here on the left, but we're looking on the right. So anyhow, looking on his right eye, and I see it's just a normal looking eye, nothing scary or loving. Either way, it's just normal eye. And then you're saying, that these how you say it, filial
falling lines.
Spiritual. And then I look on the left eye, and it's like, whoa.
That'll get your attention. So the story on this is the right side of your face is what we show to the world. It's our public persona, and it's our mother's influence. The left side is your truer inner private self, and it's your father's influence. So when I see something only on one side, there's a gender specificity to it. I'll tell you an interesting story. We do these shape warrior events. People that join our shape family as patients, they call themselves warriors because they're in kind of a battle. And we will announce a certain area we're going to do a shape conference, and all the doctors in that area will bring their patients, have them bring their friends, and I'll come as the outside authority, and I'll give a lecture. And one of the things I always do is I'll say, look, this isn't about you personally. I'm just giving general information. Please don't ask personal questions about your health. And it always comes to facial diagnosis because somebody will ask a question about it, and I'll kind of bring it up. So we did one in St. Louis. There's 150 people there. And this gal raises her hand and said, Dr. Todd, I've come from Chicago. I have this rash on my left arm, and she pulls it, and it's an oozy, pussy looking thing. It was just horrible. And I'm looking at her, and I cannot look at anyone without making a diagnosis. And she said, I've tried everything. I said, look, I have some thoughts on this, but it's personal. I prefer, at the break, just come talk to me. And the audience is kind of they're leaning more and more forward. I said, no, it's fine. I said, no, it's kind of personal. And I get this check in my spirit. Don't go there. Don't go there. And she said, no, I really want to talk about it. And I said, well, I don't like to talk about personal things. And she said, well, yeah, I came all the way from Chicago. And I said, all right, reluctantly. And it was only on the left side of her body. So now left side is male. Skin is part of, it's governed by the metal element, which is your lung and large intestine. And she had big puffiness only under her left eye. And I said, how long has this been going on? She said, well, 4 years. And I said, well, what happened 4 years ago? And she said, well, nothing. And I said to her, you've been diagnosed as depressed, correct? And she said, yes, I have. And I said, the medication didn't work, did it? She said, well, not only didn't it work, I got worse on it. And I said, well, that's because you're not depressed. And she said, no, I'm depressed. And I said, well, I accept that you have some depressing things, but there's a different D word. So in Chinese medicine, there are 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Skin is governed by the metal element, and each element has an emotion that goes with it. Wood is anger, fire is joy, worry is the water element. Excuse me, the earth element. Fear is the water element. The emotion of the metal element is despair. And I said, what you're having is despair. And because it's on your left side and the puffiness under your left eye, that's unshed tears, and it has to do with a male. Wow. And she burst into tears. And she said, my husband left me for his secretary. And I said, and when was that? And she said, 4 years ago.
Oh my God.
And she said, well, I've done steroids, I've done creams, nothing is working. What do we do? And I said, as trite and somewhat cruel as this may sound, I think we just fixed it.
Oh, geez.
I said, your brain didn't know how to fix it because it didn't know what caused it. Now it does. And my sense is that with the new knowledge you have, it'll take care of itself. And she gave me that look like, Dr. Todd, you're full of crap, kind of look on her face. And now I'm going to Chicago and doing one of these events in Chicago. And it was done at a church put together by several of our practitioners up there. And I come through in this door, and this lady, this is probably 6-8 months apart, this lady comes with a beeline running towards me. And I kind of recognize her. And as she's going, she's pulling her sleeve down off her arm. And she says, Dr. Todd, look at my arm. And it was totally gone. And I said, well, tell me a little about it. She's, well, in 3 weeks, it was 50%. In 6 weeks, I could hardly know it was there. You know, the point of that story is we have an, oh, yeah, me too. The point of that story is we have an incredible ability to heal if we understand why. And what doctors have lost is the fact that doctor in Greek means teacher. We quit teaching. Let's teach our patients how to restore their health. Let's not be functional with them. Let's not be complementary and alternative. Let's be restorative. Let's teach people what has always been there. And the ability to heal is nothing short of phenomenal. Amazing story. You know, it's one of those stories like, well, you can't make that one up because Hollywood wouldn't buy it, you know? It had to be fascinating.
Yeah, the right channels would buy it.
Yeah, well, that's probably true.
Yeah.
Probably true.
So that now I wanna have a reading, and how would I go about doing that?
I would have to go to our WTF website. So it's www.wtfytheface.com.
Okay.
So then they would purchase a facial diagnosis, and they can choose from, you know, different, if they want just to know their face shape or if they want other information, they could choose from there. And then they would pay for it, and then they would upload their pictures there.
Okay. And
Okay.
would it be just a straight on face or angle?
Yeah, it tells you what to do on there.
Yeah.
We need a non-smiling frontal, not a selfie, because the face gets distorted when you put the phone in different directions. And then left side and right side with if you got long hair, you got to pull. I got to see the ears, because the ears are very diagnostic. They represent kidney function, and they tell me lots about who you are.
Okay. And roughly the cost?
You know, if it's just a basic, you want a written report, it's $100. If you want me to give you a verbal, it's another 100 to that, 200. And if you want to get into me making recommendations, and you know, I see a liver indicator and I'll say, look, you've got a phase 1 liver detoxification problem. That's a $300 fee. It's almost like you become a patient.
Okay.
And look, I'm not a money guy. I perform the service, but it depends on what you're interested in. And if you do the first one, you want to go further, you know, we certainly can work on that. But you can get a complete facial diagnosis that will give you your face shape, right and left eye, and then all the parts of the face from ears all the way through your jaw. And then at the bottom, I'll say, these are my health concerns. And that will be just in a written form. It happens real fast. We built an app that can do that. That app will become available to practitioners like yourself. That's an expensive ordeal to make an app. Those people should have been attorneys the way they charge. It was but again, that's coming probably this fall, and that's going to make life easy for people that want to get into this thing. It's quite simple. It's much easier than people think, because we already do facial diagnosis. We just don't know we're doing it. And this, again, just put legs to it. And we do it in a very organized way. We are putting together an 8 one-hour blocks of, it's a course on facial diagnosis. We'll walk you through the whole process. The first part will be just my basic healing philosophy to understand the why behind why the face. And then we'll get into the different parts, the face. The hardest thing for people to do is determine what face shape they are. You're very difficult because you have this combination, which is, I think, a very positive thing. It means you have a nice smattering of things, and you're going to be a little more balanced than those of us that are bucketheads and that had AD. We had ADD before they called it that, because our brains just were constantly working. We can't shut it down.
I've been told that I'm scattered, see,
Yeah.
that I should focus
No.
on one thing, but no,
I disagree. You just have lots of thoughts. And you have
yeah,
the capability of handling all those thoughts.
and I can just like that, go from one to the other, and people are looking at me like, huh, what? You
How
were
can
just
you
talking
do
about
that?
this,
Yeah.
and now you're on that. I'm sorry. And then, oops, I go blank. What was I saying?
Yeah.
I accept it. It's who I am.
Well, we bucketheads need a king face in our life to make our world, because we're thought leaders. I have these great thoughts, and then I start making these thoughts come to reality, and then I have another thought, and then off I go. So Linda, my king face, really is such a balance in my life that allows me to continue to. She's a tether, which it sounds negative. There's a difference between a tether and an anchor. An anchor holds you in place. A tether
Right.
lets you float around and not
Right.
float
And
away.
come home.
Yeah, they'll pull you in when you need to be pulled in. Anchors lock you down, and they're like rules. Doctors don't like rules. Standards and values I'm all good with. Rules take away freedom. So I'm not a rules person.
Is there something else you'd like to say that you feel we need to say, or?
I had a wonderful mentor. It's strange. I've had 4 people that really spoke into my life, mentors. One, in high school, I worked at a Clark gas station. This was before self-serve. And he just took me on, taught me how to be a boss, taught me how to be a man. Then I had a basketball coach who really, my father was an alcoholic, drank himself to death when I was 9, and he was a father figure. But you're too cool at 18 to tell something. I mean, I connected with him 30 years later. We just became dear friends. He was just a wonderful man. And then I had some doctors that were mentors of mine, and I remember they all passed away. And when the last one passed away, I was mowing the lawn, and I lost it. I mean, I burst into tears. All my mentors are gone. And I had this thought that I knew they would want me to pick up the baton. And I felt totally unworthy to pick up the baton from these great men that spoke into my life. And yet I knew to honor them, I needed to pick up the baton. So I'm looking for baton picker-uppers. And this is one of my mentors, Dr. Richard Yenny. He was my acupuncture mentor. He said, you're going to go through three phases in life. I call them the 3 S's. And the first S is survival. And we as practitioners, there's a survival time. We don't walk out of the gate successful. It just doesn't happen. You got to build a practice and that type of thing. And he said, now the second phase you can go through is success. And I remember being a young doctor. This was 1982, I heard this. And I'm thinking, what is better than success? How can that pop? I'm thinking, Dr. Yenny, what comes after success? And he says, I assume you're asking yourself what's better than success. And he says, the third phase is significance. That I've met very successful people that were miserable, but I've never met anybody that was significant, that was miserable. So I'm striving to be significant. And I want, I want everybody to know what I know, and I don't have to win the pissing contest anymore. It's kind of nice to reach that point in life. Dr. Yenny also said, he said, I want you to all close your eyes, and I want you to think, how many seeds are in an apple? So we're all sitting there as young doctors, and you gotta cut the apple this way, you can't get it this way, and there's a star. Is there 4? Is there 5? Is there 6? Does it depend on the apple? And we're all using our brains, our left brain in this way. And he said, now, I want to ask you this question. How many apples are in a seed? And your brain just explodes because it's exponential. So if I could recommend 2 things to everybody that's listening, try to be significant, and try to think with the mentality of how many apples in a seed, and your life will be profoundly better. I've had an amazing life. I live in a Hallmark movie. We live in an area that is absolutely gorgeous. The people are amazingly wonderful. You ask for help, they're there. They'll be there without asking. It's just there's a kindness energy that's here, and it came from a big city. And sadly, I didn't. That energy wasn't in a big city.
Right, right. And since you came home then, didn't you?
I did, and I'm never leaving. I'm here till the good Lord calls me home, and it's just, and I think it's for everyone. We all can find reasons why life is nasty and bad, but if we can think through that love mentality, and this is, I talked about not liking math, functional medicine, but there's something in math that's rather interesting. It's called hertz. Everything has a vibrational rate of hertz. And the word love has a vibrational rate of 528. It's measurable. There's people that can do this kind of thing. And I used a technique, an energy technique called BEST in my work. It's bioenergetic synchronization technique. And basically, as I began learning more and more and getting more in depth into it, I realized I was putting people into a 528 hertz. Nobody stays there because it's just not possible. There's too much junk in this world. But here's the interesting thing. The word hate has a vibrational rate of 100. Cancer, depending on the cancer, has a vibrational rate of 40 to 100. So if hate is ruling your life, you're bringing your energy down to a place where cancer can thrive. There's nothing wrong with cancer. It just vibrates at an energy that is so detrimental to us. The key is to keep at that kindness and that love energy, and you will avail yourself to a world that is a Hallmark movie. Every time I kiss my wife, the phone rings. Just as I'm about to kiss my wife, the phone rings, which is classic in the Hallmark movie.
Well, when you're talking about the frequency of hate, and in the energy work,
and anger is the same. Hate and anger.
Exactly. Anger, hate, those negative emotions, they are so suppressive that yes, it invites disease in because it's all a negative thing. And if you think loving kindness and concentrate on that, just saying the word hate versus the word love, you feel a difference.
Absolutely.
Hate makes a cringe in your body. For me, this is. And when I think of love, I just feel expanded.
Absolutely.
And it's just, if people slow down in this life and realize, oh, like what's going on these last 2 years, everybody's afraid they're going to die, got to go run out and get that shot. Well, I'm sorry. Experimental.
It's sinister. It is awful.
We're all going to die.
Yeah,
we're all going to die. You think this shot is going to keep you from dying? Oh, God is who you need to be with.
Yeah.
Because we're all going to die sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. What I've noticed in facial diagnosis, because I do hundreds of these. I don't know how often, but I look at so many faces.
Well, you'll be doing mine.
The temple area represents your spleen, and your spleen. You can live without one. You can rupture your spleen; they can remove it. Will you be healthy? No, but the spleen produces your B lymphocytes. These are things that fight infections. They're a little army of little ninjas that come out and fight infections. So I'm pretty much seeing everybody have indented temples. When I do facial diagnosis, you have them. And the emotion of the spleen is happiness. So I ask you out there that's listening, have you been happy the last 2 years with this stuff, wearing masks that acidifies your body, which makes you sicker than you can ever imagine? It produces lots of mucus and weakens your immune system. But the evil that are behind this lie, and it is a lie, let's just flat out say it is, it's a lie. Is the disease real? Absolutely. Is it going to be there next year? Are going to people die next year and the year after and the year after that? And have they died 10 years ago from the same disease? Absolutely. COVID virus is not a new thing. Look on a Lysol can from 1984. It says it'll get rid of COVID virus, coronavirus. So what has happened here is, when's the last time we trusted our government and feared our family, friends, and neighbors? Think about it. This
Right.
is a scary thing. This is about control. So what it did is it made us unhappy, which caused our spleen to be weakened, which caused our immune system to be compromised, because the spleen produces your B lymphocytes. This was brilliant from an evil standpoint. If Hitler came up with this, he would have been praised by his cronies how brilliant his idea was.
Right.
And yet we all just bought the lie. And we've got to stand up and say no more. We have to stop this insanity. And now it's the monkeypox, and it's going to be some other thing. You know, they played with this, the swine flu, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. It was all just a lead up.
For history, there's always something.
We've been
Look behind what's behind all this stuff, and it's a sad thing. But how do you beat it? You beat it with love. You beat
Exactly.
it by caring about other people, being kind and loving people. I had some young girl F-bomb me because I wasn't wearing a mask. I was walking into a post office, and she F-bombs me. And I turned around and said, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "What?" And I said, "Well, the one is you just F-bombed me." I went, "You're not wearing an effing mask." And I said, "Well, here's where I lied." I said, "Well, I have a condition, I can't wear a mask." And she says, "A medical condition." She says, "No, you don't." And I looked at her and I go, "Who would have said that 3 years ago?"
Yeah.
You don't, when someone says, "Well, I got this condition." So now my medical brain takes off, and I said, I worked in a paper mill, and I did when I was a youngster, and I was in a chemical fire. I burnt my lungs. I have a condition called analytical. If I wear a mask, I'll cough so much I could stroke out. I could cough blood. I could pass out. I could die if I wear a mask. A total lie. I mean, I made the whole thing up. And
Okay,
she's
well,
looking at me.
I
She's,
deserve another.
"Oh, sir, I'm so sorry." And I says, "Young lady, I'm a nice guy, and but you're going to say that to somebody, and they're going to drive their truck right over your car while you're sitting in it. So if I were you, I would choose who you want to F-bomb in the future." She's, "Oh, I will." Who does that? Where did that come from? It's just insanity.
Well, yeah, I was a sickly child. I got every flu that went around. One year I even had the flu twice, and 2 weeks later.
Oh my goodness, you're still alive. My keen
I am.
diagnostic mind says you're still alive.
The pandemic of 57, I got it 2 weeks later.
Yep.
1968, I think it was the Asian one. Oh, I got it. And I haven't had the flu since 1968.
Yeah.
I had one flu shot in 2006, and that's only because sometimes I'd be the only nurse working, because I worked in an allergy clinic.
Yep.
Speaking of which, I used to give myself shots for allergy to cat. I gave it up because I wasn't getting any better. I have a house full of cats. They're in my face. They lick me. I love them. I prefer the shot over the shot. I call it mind over matter, be it God over, overruling on my body, and that's fine.
October of 2020, I was watching the news, and they said something that just pissed me off. And I went to bed pissed off. I woke up pissed off, and I laid in bed. I was praying, and I thought, I'm going to quit watching the news. I have not watched a news program, local or national, since October of 2020. And you know what happened this morning? The sun came up. It came up in the east. It did yesterday.
Yeah.
And I have faith it's going to come up tomorrow without me watching the news.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing how toxic that energy is. And no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, if you're conservative, traditionally, you're going to watch Fox. If you're the other side of the fence, progressive and liberal, you're going to watch MSNBC. And they're all full of crap,
Yeah.
I have no problem. I'm traditional, I'm conservative, but I respect the thinking of a liberal progressive when they're thinking.
Exactly.
But now they're so polar opposite. They're as far as east from west. They're both toxic.
Yes.
Stop it, all of you people. It's insanity. And we need to just go back to being kind. One of the things I always tell my kids, what does it cost to be kind? It costs nothing to be kind. What does it take to love someone? It takes less energy to love someone than the burning of hate in your soul.
And the feeling you get back from it. I like to stand in line, I don't like to stand in line, but when you're standing in line at the grocery store or wherever, and I was at the therapist the other day, and I said to this lady, I said, where did you get those pants? Those just are lovely. I love them. She says, oh, such and such a place. And I said, I need to go shopping there. And then she says, thank you so much. I felt so down today. And just
Wow.
that makes me feel so uplifted. And I get tears again. And I put my hands like this. I said, oh, thank you. Because your feedback to me makes me feel uplifted. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, it just is. Somebody else I'm standing in line, a beautiful Black lady. And I said, you are, excuse me, but I need to compliment you. You are so beautiful. Or somebody else, I love your hairstyle, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Just one person a day, if I can do that too. And I do have to add one more thing here that I do every day at 11:11, because we're getting short on time, I see.
Bummer.
Well, we can continue.
Yeah.
Prayer, well, I can continue too, but I don't know if my Zoom will do that. Anyway, hands in prayer position to the third eye, the lips, and the heart.
Yep.
And I learned this from a cryon channeling. It was a lady that did it. And I do this, my clock is set as such. Anyway, I do it this way, but you and the listeners do it the way they like. But this is my giving back to God. I give gratitude, thanks to God for all my blessings. I give gratitude and thanks to the educators in all aspects of education that bring us to you, Lord. I give gratitude and thanks to my heart for receiving your healing, loving light, pumping it throughout my entire being, creating every cell in perfect health, wellness, vibrancy, and wholeness. And so it is. Amen. Every day at 11:11, because that time, the whole entire world 24/7 is bombarded with healing, loving light. And that's just my take on the day at that time. And if I'm doing a finger stick on somebody and I can't do that, intent covers me, because the intent was to do it. So, and I found intent is as important as a prayer. It is a prayer.
Absolutely. So true. So true. You know, talking about energy and prayer, if everybody who's listening would just fold their hands, but in a clasping way, not like you did.
Mm.
So I'm going to show you what energy feels like. So I'm a right thumb over left thumb. So whatever you are, take your hands completely apart and put them back together the opposite direction. Doesn't feel right, does it? This feels right, and this isn't right. What's the difference? It's a thumb.
Yeah.
That's the energy that we're tapping into. It's that subtle, that simple. It's the energy that raised Lazarus from the dead. Christ didn't raise Lazarus dead and come out of there and say, okay, guys, this is how you do it. You put your left hand to the North Pole and you direct energy through it, and you put your right hand on the forehead and then on the chin and on the chest. That's how I raised Lazarus from the dead. He comes out of there and he says to these people, greater things than this you can do also. He just physically raised somebody from the dead and said to everybody out there, greater things than this you can do. And I live by that principle, the law of tenfold return. If you pay your tithes and offerings, the Lord will open the windows and pouring out a blessing. You won't have room in your house to store it. We need to build an empire on that. I have built an empire on that principle. The law of tenfold return exists. It's the secret. It's all these books that have out there been telling the same thing, but it's been around since the beginning of time, and it's written down in Genesis through the last book of Revelation. So it's out there. It just find it, whatever source you want. If you want to use the Bible, great. If you don't use it, I don't care. But take a spiritual path, use love, use kindness, and quit watching the news.
Amen to that. Okay, so Dr. Frisch, it's time to close this one out, and I would like to have another Zoom with you at another time, because
I'm in. Put me down. I'm in.
Okay. So I want to thank you for sharing all this wonderful information. Boy, I'm right on board with you. You'll be hearing a lot more from me. So
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing some of your wisdom. I know there's a lot more in there. So
I'm a buckethead. There's a lot.
All right. And I want to thank all my listeners for tuning in to my Common Sense Living podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure you learned something new, because I certainly did. So please leave a kind review and share this episode with a friend, and be sure to subscribe. You'll find me on places where podcasts are, like Apple and YouTube and other platforms. And don't forget, We'll be here again next time with another insightful episode of Common Sense Living. I can hardly wait. Thank you for tuning in to my Common Sense Living podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm sure you learned something new. Please leave a kind review and share this episode with a friend. And be sure to subscribe yourself. You'll find me on iTunes, Spotify, and other platforms. And don't forget, we'll be here again next week with another insightful episode of Common Sense Living. I can hardly wait.